I thought the debate was fantastic. I want to congratulate the debate commission, everything they did, with COVID-19 and everything going on. I thought that the one thing that differentiated me is that we had a lot of discussion about Marxists and socialists and whether that's good or bad, and a lot of fighting like kids on a playground, but nobody stopped and said, hey, let's be an adult and talk about jobs, because that's what people care about right now. I don't think the people of Salt Lake, Utah, Juab, and Sanpete County care who's a Marxist or a socialist. They want to keep their job, and they want to get their job back, and they want to open their small business. I don't think I heard that from anyone else today in any real way. And by that I mean, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to say, well, listen, I have the experience, but I also have specific policy recommendations that I think will help us do that. And so if we're going to spend our time talking about Marxists and socialists and whether that's good or bad, I'll let them have that discussion. I'm about creating jobs. It's what I do. The conversation that was being had was whether it's okay to do it by fiat, right? And the point that I was making is Mayor Mendenhall didn't just say, well, there's a curfew and get it sent to our phones, right? I got it. You probably got it. She got together with the Salt Lake Police Department, and that was a joint decision to say, this is what's going to be best. And here's what I didn't get to say because time ran out. But what they did is they had a curfew, but you didn't see any cops out on the streets arresting people. Again, they took the temperature down. They said, okay, here's a curfew. People were still out on the streets. The police officers were talking to people. It was very calm. It was temperature down, right? It's the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer, right? You get these people that want to say, oh, well, he's a Marxist and he's a socialist. That's a thermometer. That gets determined by the temperature around you. And I'm saying that she acted and the police acted like a thermostat. We're going to set the temperature, and it doesn't matter what it is, we're going to set the temperature here. And so that's what I think is appropriate. I think, Jay's point was that sometimes you have to defy civil liberties. And to me, what that says is that's a little scary, because to me, what I heard is Jay said, I know when to defy your civil liberties. Like, does Jay know when that is? I don't know when that is. I would rather err on the side of you don't do that, but then when you come together and it's an extraordinary circumstance, then you do it. I mean, it's ridiculous to say that the COVID-19 restrictions all across the country were fine just because they were put out by Republicans, or that they're analogous to wearing a hairnet. That's ridiculous, right? What that tells me is that people don't look at data. Because if you look at the data, what it tells you is 1.8% of the population accounted for 45% of the mortality. So what are we doing? What are we doing with everybody else, right? You need to look at the data and target it. 98% of people under 65 years old recover. Why do they have to stay home, right? My point is, if you're a small business owner, you are automatically smarter than anybody in Congress. These small business owners care about their customers, they care about their employees, and if you give them guidelines, let them govern themselves, and they will do the right thing. That's at least my experience in Utah. That's a Utah value.
So for you, is the distinction that no one was arrested for breaking that curfew? I mean, there were a lot of people that got arrested on that.
Well, no, what I saw was you had people that they said, okay, here's a curfew, okay, but then you watch the news for hours and there was people still out. What you didn't see is the police move in force, right, with shields and batons and start, knocking people off the streets. It was if there was violence, yeah, we're going to arrest people. In fact, you saw the guy that turned himself in today, right, for having turned over that police car. And so it was an effort to say, okay, we're going to reinstill law and order, okay, but we're not going to light a firework, right? We're going to do this in a measured way. And that was the leadership portion of it that I appreciated, that it wasn't just the mayor acting by fiat. It was a joint effort with the Salt Lake Police Department. Those are professionals. Those are people who know what they're doing, and you can trust that.
Do you think that the COVID-19 version was not a joint effort between health departments and the state government?
No, that's not the point. It's not whether it's a joint effort, it's whether it's proportional, right? Do I need to stay home, me, a 43-year-old, pretty healthy guy, do I need to stay home for 2.5 months when I'm not in any vulnerable population? Do my kids need to not go to school when the mortality rate for children is approaching 0, right? And if we do that in the fall, all you're doing is saying, you parents, or at least one of you, can't go to work because somebody's got to stay with them, right? And so it's a proportionality issue. And I don't fault Governor Herbert or President Trump for the initial response, because again, we're going without a playbook here, okay? But as soon as we have the data, you act. That's what is important to me. I think that's what is the secret sauce for President Trump. He wasn't a politician, A, but B, he was a businessman. And that means you're decisive, you take action, you're a closer, and when you see the data, you move on it. And I think we could have opened, I think we should be 100% open right now, and I think we could have moved a lot faster.
Let's take a question from Lisa Ryland Roche.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Trent. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm wondering, you talk about being 100% open right now and leaving it up to businesses to deal with COVID-19, how they respond. You said you would not wear a mask, or you don't wear a mask.
Right.
If you leave it up to businesses and they're not doing the things that the CDC suggests are necessary to protect all of us, and that includes wearing a mask, so you're not spreading germs. How do you protect Utahns? And aren't there some limits that should be in place to prevent the spread of this virus? Or are you saying, no, we're done with that, we don't need any limits whatsoever?
No, I wouldn't say that. My point is, and always will be, we need to give guidelines, right, that are educated and based off of data that's current, right? And then allow the people to govern themselves, trust the people. Now, there will always be a time where you go in and for a restaurant, they have health officials that come and check out their restaurant and make sure that people are wearing gloves, right? But does that mean that the rest of society needs to stay home, right? Again, it's an issue of proportionality. I think that the governor of this state and of every state can open in an accountable, reasonable, sustainable way by giving guidelines to people and then acting like we act in everyday business. To say that COVID-19 is somehow beyond comprehension, beyond the ability of small business owners to handle, I think is a mistake. I think it limits us, right? And it creates a new normal. I think we need to go back to saying, these are the guidelines. We're going to incorporate this into health guidelines if we need to. And if it's something where we need to go and say, we're going to start doing spot inspections and making sure that, food preparers are wearing gloves and masks. Okay, right? But for me, again, I'm not in a vulnerable population, thank goodness, right? My kids, they're healthy. For us to have to fall under these other guidelines simply because there might be a possible chance, again, let me use the example of the masks. Dr. Fauci has said that the masks are essentially useless. It would work against bacteria, it doesn't work against viruses, but we're told we need to use it, and now there's some sort of social stigma around it. I think we need to move back into a scenario where we go back to business. This is all about getting people back to their jobs and keeping your job if you have one now, getting small businesses open. And I think the mistaken premise is that we have to start with COVID-19 is a killer. And I think we start with our small business people are smart and they're going to take care of their clients and their customers, and let's move from there.
Other questions?
Trent, I'm curious to know, what do you
Get back to you.
are the hallmarks of a good leader?
I think the way that the president handled this pandemic is a demonstration of that. He built a good team around him, a great team around him, and he listened to that team. Should I look over here? And when you have the data, though, you need to act, right? You need to be decisive. You need to be a closer. Danny Ainge once said that most NBA teams don't know how to win. And by that, he didn't mean that they don't know how to score points or don't know how to win the game. He meant that under the spotlight, they don't know how to react. When the pressure's on, they don't know what to do. They're not closers. And so a good leader sees the data and acts on it. And what I see right now are people are out of jobs. Listen, we can talk all day about Marxist, socialists, should we use rhetoric, should we just be folksy? Let's just get people their jobs back and use the data and say, this is what's going to work, let's do it. And that's why I had the idea about the bailouts and tying that to an opening of the economy, because right now we've got people playing games with it. Burgess is right to a certain degree. There are people that don't want this country open because it helps them in the presidential election. But Jay's also right that you're not going to beat them with rhetoric, you beat them with better ideas. And our ideas will open the economy, get people their jobs back, help people keep their jobs, and move this country forward. So I know your question is about leadership. I think that's what it takes. It's someone who can look at data, be decisive, listen to the people around him, listen to people who disagree with him. Ask people, tell me I'm wrong, tell me how I'm wrong, and take that into account and then move forward, but move forward decisively.
So you're saying somebody who's willing to listen to experts and in place around them?
Absolutely. But when you disagree with those experts, having the gumption to say, okay, I disagree, we're going to go this way. But at the same time, you've got, in this specific example of COVID, right, you've got health officials, experts, you've got economic officials and experts, and you need to listen to both of them. I wouldn't take a health official's word on how to open the economy, just like I wouldn't take, you know, Larry Kudlow's advice on whether or not I should wear a mask, right? You listen to everyone based on their expertise and then you act.
We've reached the end of our time here. Thank you.
Sorry, Lisa, if you have another question, give me a call. Thanks, everybody.